Hey, what's up, Spencer? My name is everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are somebody who likes books, anime, or fandom, then make sure to subscribe because I am constantly uploading reading vlogs, anime reviews, and fandom discussions. Today we are doing my August Buzzwordathon reading vlog. The Buzzwordathon was invented by Kayla over at Books and Lala. And this is a year-long readathon in which every single month you are given a buzzword in which you have to find a book with a title that fits the buzzword. For August, we are doing body parts, and usually the requirement for this is just one book, but I am currently in a situation where I have about 270 books on my TBR, and I really need to get that down. So I'm actually going to be doing 3 today. The first book that I'm going to be reading is Cunt by Inga Musico. I am pretty sure that I'm not allowed to say this word on YouTube, which, hey, I'm pretty sure that this is a book about the reclamation of this word, so that's an interesting aspect of this book, the fact that I am reading this book about the reclamation of the C-U-N-T word, and yet I am not allowed to say it while talking about it. The next book that I have is Eyes Like Stars by Lisa Mantchev, and then the third book I'm going to be reading is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. I gotta be honest, I do not know, well, I don't remember at all what either of these books are about, and I'm not super interested in seeing what these books are about. I love going into books blind because there are plenty of times in which I will read a synopsis and then get confused and think that something is going to happen in a book that totally isn't going to happen because I just misunderstood the way that things are described. And I also just like going into things blind because the author should be able to fully tell me what I need to know in the time that I need to know it and stuff like that, and not really knowing anything kind of adds a little bit more to the story for me. I know for other people, it would probably drive them absolutely insane going into a book knowing nothing more than the title is Eyes Like Stars, and to me, cover art really does a lot for me. I mean, look at how beautiful this is. Like, I absolutely want to pick this up and see what is going on in this book that would inspire this type of cover art. I am the worst type of reader because I purely judge books on their cover and read books absolutely based on their cover. Anyway, let's kind of just jump into reading these books, I guess, because I don't really have much more to say about them, seeing as I don't know anything about them. Alright, so I have started both C-U-N-T and Eyes Like Stars, and let's talk about them. So first off, I really liked the introduction and the foreword for this book. The foreword is written by Dr. Betty Dodson, and the introduction is written by a Derek Jensen. And I liked the things that they were saying enough that I actually started annotating in this book. I am not somebody who really annotates at all, but this really got out, or had me getting out my highlighter and my pen to be highlighting things and writing notes in the margins. And while I'm sorry if you can hear like the lawnmower outside, sorry about that, guys. So while I really liked the introduction and the forward, once I started getting into the actual body of the work, the actual part that is written by Inga Musico, it started to become apparent to me that Inga seems to be the type of feminist where she thinks that she has figured out the right way to interact with femininity and womanhood and kind of passes judgment on other women who are not interacting and having the same relationship as her. One good example for this is when she is talking about periods. I notice constantly, all the time, women will be all about my body, my choice, I can do whatever makes me feel comfortable, you know, everything is an individual, but when it comes to whatever period products you are using, I find that women will always pass so much judgment on whatever period product it is that you decide to use. Oh, you're using a pad? Isn't that just like sitting in your own blood? Oh, you're using tampons? Like, don't you know that that leaves like stuff inside of you and that they like bleach the cotton and like blah 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 blah? there are so many times in which I just hear like all of this rhetoric where it's saying like, oh, all of this stuff is like so expensive and we shouldn't be giving these money to these company because it just really pushes like capitalism and like that's bad and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, they really don't actually care about that, because they don't want me to be buying Kotex pads, but instead want me to be buying sea sponges, but don't care about the fact that I bought my sea sponges from Walmart, which routinely takes advantage of its employees by wage theft or just firing you if you even mention the word union. So if we are so up in arms about the fact that we are contributing through capitalism by buying pads and tampons and stuff like that, but don't care about any of the other ways that we're contributing in capitalism, like, do you really care about capitalism, or is it just that you found a way to make yourself feel better than other people, and so you can pass judgment on others who are not doing the same thing as you are? I'm also now going to talk about something that's kind of like pretty triggering. I'm going to be talking about abortion. It is something that she mentions in here, so if that's something that you're uncomfortable with, then please skip to the timestamp here. So Inga does mention that in her life she has had 3 abortions. 2 abortions that she had were through Planned Parenthood, and the 3rd one that she had was through a more natural way where she was taking herbs and she was working with these different, I don't know exactly what their titles are. I think that she might say exactly what their titles are, but I'm not sure what exactly it is that these women are classified to do. But she talks about this abortion and how she takes these herbs and spends like all of this time like meditating and all this stuff, and how it worked, and how this 3rd abortion was like so much easier and better and less traumatic for her than the first 2 abortions, which sounds amazing and great, until she starts talking about other women who have tried this method of abortion. Inga talks about how other women have tried the herbal method and how it hasn't worked for them, and that the reason that it didn't work for them is because they took the herbs and then went about their life as normal and went to work and didn't spend an entire week like meditating and like imagining the uterine wall like shedding and all of this stuff, and that was just like really shitty to me. You're telling me that this is supposed to be a less traumatic way to have an abortion, but a large portion of whether or not that abortion is going to work depends heavily on whether or not I believe in it enough and I spend enough time meditating on it enough and stuff like that? That sounds way more traumatic to me than just going to Planned Parenthood and getting a regular abortion that is going to be absolutely guaranteed. Because if you told me that a large portion of my abortion relied heavily on whether or not I believed in the abortion enough, that would be the most anxiety-inducing thing to ever happen in my entire life. I'm not even going through that experience, and just thinking about having to believe in it enough to get it to work is causing me like such anxiety. So like it really felt like Inga was like pushing a lot of judgment on these women because they didn't have the ability to spend a whole entire week meditating. You know, these women like actually had like kids and jobs and shit like that that they had to do instead. And also like, how can you classify or measure how hard somebody is believing in something like that? Like, I don't know. The entire concept just did not seem as beautiful and amazing and like as she was trying to make it out to seem, now that she has talked about how so much of it is like reliant on you yourself and like how much you believe in it. Like, I don't know. As I'm going through this, just so much of this is starting to like line up close to like anti-vax rhetoric and like the rhetoric of the women who like message you on Facebook trying to sell you essential oils and stuff like that. Inga talks about how her the pain that she had around her period lessened once she stopped taking ibuprofen and other pain medications to handle it. And she then concludes that because that medication was bad for her, that must mean that all medications are bad and all doctors are bad, and we are too over-reliant on doctors, which is just that can be an extremely damaging viewpoint to have, because there are a lot of people who need medication and cannot live without their medication. I'm glad that you figured out a way that made your periods like better for you and stuff like that, and I totally believe that the ibuprofen probably was a factor in that. But to say that like everybody should get off their medication is bad, doctors are bad, that is a really terrible thing to have, because I know so many people who struggle just to live their lives and be happy in their lives, because there's this toxic idea that being on medication makes you a bad person, and being reliant on medication is a bad thing, and the only way to like truly be well is to not be on medication and not go to doctors. That's just not right. Not a true thing for a lot of people. A lot of us do need doctors and medication and stuff like that. Alternative forms of medication are very beneficial and absolutely should be looked into. I myself have benefited a lot from things like acupuncture. That's an alternative form of medicine that has really helped me manage my headaches. But I would never tell somebody to not go to a doctor or to not get on medication just because I found that something like acupuncture was beneficial for me and my pain in the past. Alright, let's stop talking about this book right now and get on to Eyes Like Stars. This is an interesting and fun book. So Birdie is our main character. This is her here. She reminds me so much of Jinx. Oh my goodness, like look at that. They look exactly the same. Anyway, Birdie is our main character and she lives in a theater, but it's not like a regular theater. It's a very mystical theater where this is definitely a theater, but at the same time, all of the people who are playing the characters are really their characters. So they're aware of the fact that they are performing on a stage, but Ophelia really is Ophelia, and Peter Pan really is Peter Pan. And Birdie has been living and growing up in this theater, but she kind of doesn't really fit in as she's been growing up, and because of that, the theater manager has determined that it might be time for her to go out into the real world and find her regular place in the real world among regular people. And obviously she doesn't want to go, you know, this is the only family that she's ever had, the only family she wants to know, but it is a chance for her to potentially go out and find her birth mother and all of that. So right now she's trying to determine whether or not she wants to stay, whether she wants to go, what that's gonna mean, because she can go, but none of the other players in the theater can go, but several of them want to. Several of them are really done with being stuck in this, I don't know, alternate dimension, whatever you want to call it, and want to go to the real world. So I kind of feel like that's where the bad guy is going to come from, where it's going to be one of the things where they're not technically like the bad guy, but they want something that only the main character can have, and because they're jealous of the main character, that's kind of where like the conflict and the bad stuff is going to come from. It's interesting, I like it, and I'm going to continue on. I'm only about 50 pages in so far, so let's keep reading.
Gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yo. Set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation.
Alright, time for a check-in, and this really is a check-in because I am DNFing this book. So we started in a place where Inga Musico is giving off this vibe of, I've figured out femininity and I've figured out the way that you're supposed to interact with womanhood, and anybody who doesn't do it the same way that I do, like, I pass judgment on that. It's moved from a place of her being very judgmental of other women to a place where now she's just flat out lying about things. And once it gets to be from opinions to just lying about stuff, like, I don't really fuck with that anymore. I only got about 60 pages in, and about 55 pages in, Inga goes on this, like, rant about how the only way that you can have sex and not get pregnant is either through masturbation or by exclusively having sex with women. And that's just not true. That's not right. I thought this was supposed to be a trans-inclusive work. The people who wrote, like, the introduction and the foreword said that it was a trans-inclusive work, but as I'm continuing to read it, it really doesn't feel trans-inclusive to me, because there are women who can get you pregnant. There are men who cannot get you pregnant. It really feels like Inga just has an extreme anxiety over getting pregnant again, because she has already had 3 abortions. And if that is really something that is happening, then, like, she doesn't need to have, like, penetrative sex. Like, I don't know why, but she seems convinced that, like, she needs to have penetrative sex, when in reality, all of the things that, like, the cis lesbians are doing to her that she loves that isn't getting her pregnant, cis guys can do that too. Like, if she likes the fact that she's only getting eaten out and fingered, the guy can also only eat out and finger her. If she likes the fact that the lesbians are strapping up and dicking her down like that, there's no reason why a cis guy can't also strap up and dick her down like that. Look, she's really just limiting herself and her view on gender and sex by stating that the only way that you can have sex is by masturbation or only having sex with women, because, like, I have had sex with people of every gender and have not gotten pregnant, so there's also birth control. But that's the thing that blends into the second thing that has really made it so that I am DNFing this book, and that is Inga hates birth control, which is a very anti-feminist point of view to have. So Inga's thought process is that seeing as birth control is technically medicine, she's not even talking about the pill, she kind of just, like, says birth control as a whole, so seeing as birth control is medicine, and the medical field has historically been a male-dominated field, that must mean that birth control is something that men are using to oppress women. Now, if you do literally 5 seconds of research on the history of the pill and on birth control in general, you will see that that is not true at all. Yes, technically a man created the pill, and a big reason for that was because when they invented the pill, like, women weren't really had access to education and to the degrees that would allow them to be chemists and create the pill, so they did need to work with a man, but he didn't create it on his own. He worked with lots of women in the creation of the pill. And not just that, but men on their own did not come up with the idea to create the pill. The pill was only created after generations of women advocated and fought for and talked about having the need and the desire to have this type of birth control. Birth control has historically been considered an extremely important aspect of feminism and women's liberation, because it gave women the ability and the freedom to have sex without getting pregnant. And men have never wanted women to have access to birth control, to the point that even now, in the year 2023, men are actively working to pass laws to make it so that women cannot have access to birth control. So this idea that birth control is an oppressive thing that men have been forcing on women as a way to control women is wrong in every single sense, and to try and say that it's true in any way is just a really, I think, a really shitty thing to do. I'm a trans man and I love my birth control. My birth control is a really big part of what masculinizes me, because it's something that makes it so that I don't have a period anymore, and that's something that's very important to me. So for her to like just shit on birth control in general and try and say that birth control is a bad thing in any way, I can't do it. I can't keep reading this. I don't know where this woman is getting these ideas from, but they are just fundamentally wrong. Anyway, let's move on to Eyes Like Stars. I am almost halfway through this book right now. I'm about 155 pages in, and while I am enjoying this story, it is very slow. We're halfway through and Birdie is still trying to like prove that she belongs in the theater by like becoming a director and kind of changing some of the stories and the plays that they have previously done. But I don't understand why they are letting her do this, why they're kind of like, it seems obvious to me that she's going to fail and that the point is that she has to eventually go out into the real world. So I don't understand why we are entertaining this idea of her being a director, especially because her idea that she came up with, super lame and super boring. The only thing she wants to do is take Hamlet, and now instead of it being in Denmark, like now she wants it to take place in Egypt. That's it. That's her entire like vision. That's the most boring thing that I've ever heard of, especially because several of Shakespeare's plays already take place in Egypt. Like there isn't really much, there's nothing transformative that you are doing to this play to add to it and make it like this new thing that people are going to want to come and see. And that's another thing that I don't really like about this book is, even though this is supposed to be in like a interdimensional theater where like all of these theater characters like exist and stuff like that, at least 90% of the characters that we interact with on here are all Shakespearean, even though we refer to the fact that there are more plays out there besides just Shakespearean plays. So it's not like this is a Shakespearean only theater. They reference like The Little Mermaid and stuff like that. And it makes me a little bit sad that we don't get to see characters from Rent or Our Town or any of the other plays that are out there that are very well known in the theater. It makes me feel like the author wasn't really committing to the story. I feel like she's stuck with Shakespearean characters because they're well known, and thus she can rely on the reader knowing who these characters are. But I think that that's kind of a cop-out. If you're going to do a book in which like it's going to be very theater heavy, then you have to go hard into assuming that your reader is a theater kid and thus is going to be familiar with other famous plays as well, and thus pull in those characters, because it's very boring and flat to only have Shakespearean characters. I want to see Roger, Mimi, like other characters besides just Shakespeare come into this and be influential, you know? And because this book is going so slow, I feel like it won't be until the very end that she gets kicked out of the theater and is expected to go out into the real world. I think that this is the first book in a series, because when I was looking to see how many pages this is, there is an excerpt from like another book at the end. So I feel like it's not going to actually start really capturing my interest until the very end, and then at that point I'm not going to want to pick up the second book because you've barely grabbed my interest and now the book is over. Yeah, I don't know. So either way, I am going to keep reading this. For my third book that I'm doing for this vlog, Skin of the Sea, I have a hold on the audiobook on this right now, so I'm kind of waiting to see if the audiobook can come in. But if it doesn't come in by the time I'm done with this, then I will just start like regular reading this instead of physically listening to it. Alright, so I am back and I have finished Eyes Like Stars, and I'm gonna be giving this book 3.5 stars. There were so many things that I really liked about this world. I really liked the concept of kind of having this interdimensional live theater that is fully interacting with the characters and responding to what is going on. That was super fun. I did really like several of the characters, but like I said previously, I wish we had more than just the Shakespearean characters, especially because they were mentioning things like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Peter Pan and the Little Mermaid and stuff like that. Like, pull some of that shit in there too. My main issue with this book was that I really struggled to understand character motivations. Characters changed what they wanted and why they wanted it, like literally on a dime, on the flip of a hat, to the point that like it felt like the main character was two different people at some points, because she was just acting like so completely different than the person that she was in previous scenes. I wish that I could be more into this, because I wish that I could want to go on to the next book, because the concept is really interesting, but at the same time I was not invested enough to try and truly get into this. The plot wasn't really there enough for me, and it didn't leave off enough on a cliffhanger for me to really be scrambling to pick up the next book. And as somebody who already has over 270 books on their TBR, I'm a little bit picky about what I'm adding right now, so I'm done with this one. This was good, but not going to continue in the series. So for the third and last book that I'm reading for this vlog, Skin of the Sea, fun fact, apparently I tried to read this book about a year ago and was not vibing with it and ended up DNFing it. But this time around, I am definitely vibing with it more. I am about 50 pages in right now. This is a Little Mermaid retelling in which our main character, Simi, is a mermaid who is also kind of like a Grim Reaper, in which she follows the slave ships on the Middle Passage and collects the souls of slaves who are thrown off these ships because they have died. And one day Simi is trying to collect somebody's soul, only to find that this person is still alive, ends up rescuing this person. He is a prince of a African kingdom, and now she is trying to bring him back, help him with the things that he needs help with, but at the same time, her saving his life kind of screwed up everything for all of the mermaid Grim Reapers out there somehow. That's one of the things about like books like this, is when characters like mess up in a way that they're like, oh my god, you doomed like all of our kind like forever. Like, why didn't you like mention something like that before? Like, you think that if you have like a whole bunch of like Grim Reaper mermaids like out there collecting people's souls, that you would bring up the fact that if you come across somebody who hasn't died yet, you shouldn't save them because that will doom all of mermaid kinds. Like, why wouldn't you say something like that? I'm sorry, that's kind of like a nitpicky like loophole for me that besides that, I am enjoying this book so far. The thing that I am most enjoying about this book, though, this is the Owl Crate edition that I have here. Look at the cover under the dust jacket. Oh my goodness, this is the most beautiful book that I think that I own. There is, just the sparkles and just everything. I am just all about it. Alright, so my plans for the day is to try and continue reading this as much as possible, but I do also need to bring Lila to the vets because she has been having diarrhea for the past few days, so I need to get her checked out and have some medication and stuff like that. And then later tonight, I'm also having my friend come over and we're gonna hang out. So I am gonna try and read this as much as possible because I'm kind of done with this vlog. I want to be done with this. I want to move on to the next stuff. So I'm going to try and finish this book as quickly as I can and have this be over. That's something that I think that I like struggle with my ADHD, and I need to learn how to manage for like this type of thing, is With ADHD, I can only work on projects for as long as they hold my attention, which means that I need to work on them like really fast and really hard in like a very short amount of time if I want to get them done. And sometimes vlogs can take a very long time to put together, especially when they're reading vlogs. It can take days and weeks to read books and stuff like that, especially depending on how much you're reading and what else you got going on in your life. So if I get bored of a concept of a vlog, it can be difficult for me to finish the vlog because my ADHD brain is over it and wants to move on to the next thing. So that's kind of where I am right now. I want to finish this vlog and move on to the next thing. So let's bang this book out and like get on to the next video, I guess. Number one, we're ignoring my hair. It's way too long and I'm getting a haircut today. 2, I took Lila to the vet and spent well over $500 just for the vet to tell me that she is perfectly okay, and she is okay now. All of her symptoms are gone and she's fine, so yay, awesome. I'm not saying that I wish that she had been sick, but it's not fun to spend over $500 for nothing. With Skin to the Sea, in the Sea, whatever this is called, I'm over halfway through this book already and I am really liking it. It is definitely unique. There are lots of interesting cultural aspects to it because there are a lot of fantasy creatures and stuff like that that are African fantasy creatures that I'm not familiar with, and so this is my first time experiencing them and learning about them, and that is a really fun and interesting aspect of this book. Why is it getting so dark in here all of a sudden? Something that I don't like is there will frequently be like contradictions in this book that will make me confused, because at the beginning of the book, they kind of like established that gods and goddesses aren't really going to interfere with the slave trade and stuff like that, and now all of a sudden, all the gods and goddesses are interfering with the slave trade, so I mean, good for them, they should be, but I mean, that's the exact opposite of what we started the book at, so okay. I'm hoping I can try and finish this today. I have a whole bunch of chores that I need to do, so hopefully I can get through this and finally be done with it and this vlog.
I don't really know what comes next. I'm just doing my best, even though I'm so stressed out. Everything just feels like a test that I fail, so depressed when I can't seem to get out. But something deep inside won't let me quit. I swear that I'm inspired by all this shit. Tell me that I can and I won't. That's what guides me the most. Your lies, I'll do what I want. The gas in the back of the sun, never leaves, she's so bad. She made the right the gas in the back of the sun, never leaves, she's so bad. She made the right the gas in the back of the sun, never leaves, she's so bad. She made the right the gas in the back of the sun, never leaves, she's so bad. She made the right I'm inspired by thirst, I'm inspired by worth. I desire your worst, so you can just hide while I work. I ain't tired, you first. I'll write a second, third verse about the lies you go disperse. You never did.
I have now officially finished Skin of the Sea, and I'm gonna be giving this book 4 stars. There was a lot of stuff that I really liked about it. This was really interesting and very fast-paced. There was a lot going on in the plot, so I was never really bored with it. That was really good. And like I mentioned previously, I really liked learning about all of these different new fantasy characters and myths and legends and stuff like that that I hadn't been aware about before. What wasn't really working for me for this book was that the goal, what we were trying to do, kept on changing so much that by the end, what was happening was vastly different than the beginning, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if you do it properly. But the thing that we sent out to do in the beginning was important and now seems like completely forgotten. The plot developed to a point that I was kind of confused about what was happening at the end. This is the first book in a series, but unfortunately I am not going to be continuing on with it. Like I said, I am trying to pare down my TBR. I have over 270 books on it, and if I am not like frothing at the mouth for a plot or characters, then it isn't something that I'm interested in continuing on in. Alright, so I have now finished all 3 of my books for this Buzzwordathon. I have a book that I DNF'd, and 2 books that were first in the series that were pretty interesting, pretty intriguing, but still not good enough to get me on to the next one. If you have made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. But besides that, make sure to stay safe and have a fantastic day. Bye.